Entrepreneurs aren't born, they're brewed. You are now listening to the Entrepreneur Podcast with your host, Adam McChesney. Let's grow!
Welcome to the Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Adam McChesney, and I want to thank you for being here today. Thank you to Half Coast Studios for everything that they do to make the Entrepreneur Podcast possible and for sponsoring the show. If you are looking to start your podcast or take your current one to the next level, then you definitely need to check out what they have going on. Contact them today for a free consultation. If you're listening, please be sure to subscribe to the show and leave us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. We would love for you to share this on social media by tagging me and our guests, so this way we can get this content out to more people. Today, we have another great episode lined up for you. He and I have been connected online for over 2 years, and I've absolutely paid attention to everything that he has said and he has put out with his content over that time. I've read his book and implemented many things. I've listened to a ton of his podcast episodes and gained valuable insights, and I know you will gain valuable insights from this episode today. My guest today is Tomas Keenan. Tomas is best known for his humble beginnings and lengthy career as a custom car audio installer. He is the epitome of a technician turned COO. After co-founding an industry-leading GPS tracking and dashboard camera installation company and growing it to a 7-figure business, Tomas moved into the coaching space as a high-level business and success coach for other industry leaders and business owners. Tomas works with entrepreneurs who refuse to be average and are crushing 7+ figures in their business. His success as an elite business coach led him to move his family from New York City to Dallas, Texas to focus full-time on his newest company, Step It Up Academy. Tomas is also a sought-after public speaker, 2 times best-selling author, and Step It Up Entrepreneur podcast host. He has interviewed industry leaders, influencers, high-level business and success coaches, business owners, and entrepreneurs who are impacting their communities and the world at large. Tomas, welcome to the show.
What's up, man? Grateful to be here.
I'm excited to have you, man. You were on my list, and I haven't told you this yet, but when I first started this podcast back in February, I wrote a list of 25 people that I'm like, at some point, I'm going to get these people on my podcast, and you were on that list. So I'm glad that we're able to do this. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, man. So let's dive in there for a minute, right? Because what you did is known as the Dream 25 or Dream 100, originated from Chet Holmes in his book, The Ultimate Sales Machine. And there's power in it because I've done the same thing, right? You know, I've got a podcast myself now that's been out either 2 or 3 years. Like my time frame is just whacked because there's just so much crap going on, which is a good thing and a bad thing all at once. But what you did there was very intentional. You spent some time and you wrote down a list of, hey, these are the people who I would like to actually interview or have on as a guest at some point in time over the next, we'll call it, 30, 60, 90, 120 days, 180 days, whatever it may be. And it's kind of funny how I didn't know that. I put out a post, I don't know, on Facebook, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, and You slide in, it's like, there's my opportunity. It's funny how the world works. And if you actually put that little bit of intention out into the universe, how it sometimes comes back in ways that you least expect.
Oh yeah, no, it's been a game changer for me, just writing things down and manifesting it to the world. I've opened up more this year in social media, just with my content and being very forthcoming in that stuff. And it always comes back tenfold when you start to do those things. So I really appreciate you coming on today. I know you're going to provide some insane value to our audience. And just to kind of give our audience a recap of what our process looks like here on the Entrepreneur Podcast, we'd like to bring our guests on and compare their entrepreneurial journeys to that of the beer brewing process. So to get started, Tomas, we like to kind of get to know a little bit about what you're doing right now, and then work backwards in terms of where you started and how you got here today. So let us know that, and I know it's been an amazing journey, so would love to dive in there.
Yeah. So right now, the thing kicking off, Step It Up Academy, right? It's my coaching and mastermind company. We do on-site assessments where we actually come into the business owner's company and spend 2 days there and kind of look at it from a holistic 30,000-foot view and intentionally try to poke holes in it. Like, where are you weak and how can we help you design a game plan to fill those voids so you can basically attain and achieve your goals over the next 90 days faster and more efficiently. That's part of what we do there. Right. The main gig of it, though, it's a mastermind. We've got 2 levels to it. We've got level 1, level 2, and it's group setting and one-to-one coaching, as well as a group mastermind that comes together quarterly, where we just get a like-minded. And listen, you're familiar. I know you're a part of a couple different masterminds that we both know. But this is, and there's a lot of power in it, right? And there's power in it, and I know there's power in it because it's one of the reasons and one of the things that's gotten me to where I am today, because I invested a lot of time, energy, and money myself into these kind of groups, which enabled me to do the things that I'm doing now. Right. But you put that like-minded group of people together in one room, and it's amazing what happens in the energy and what can potentially happen when the light bulb goes off in someone's head and they say, oh, I got it now. I had to hear it 78 different times, but now I got it. And let me go home. And now I'm going to go implement, kind of like you implementing that Dream 25 in your podcast list.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, the mastermind aspect, going back to when I got started in that, I went into entrepreneurship full time in August of 2020, or actually July of 2020. In August, I invested in my first mastermind and coaching program, I guess you could say. Mm-hmm. And I was super lucky that I took the initiative really early on before, opening up to trying to do this all on my own. What are some of the biggest things that you find? Obviously, I know every company is a little bit different, but what are some key things that you find that people are missing when you're talking with business owners all day long, really taking that 30,000 foot view and looking at some of their companies?
Yep. A couple things that come into play. Foundational shit is never done. They skip right over it because they're too busy putting the marketing and sales together because that's sexy. And when I talk about foundational stuff, we're talking your core values, your mission, your purpose. No one's taking, I should say no one, let me rephrase. Very few people are taking the time out of the gate to establish that up front. It's like structuring or building a home. You've got to pour the footing and pour the foundation before you can start building the framework. Yet most people, they structure the entity. They like, oh, cool. Let's go fire up QuickBooks or get some CRM in place if they even know what a CRM is. And all of a sudden they start selling shit and collecting this money. There's no processes on the back end. They're selling whatever service or product or widget it is that they have to anybody who's willing to pay for it. And you know what? At the beginning stages of business, that may be necessary for your survival, but there comes a point in time where not all business is good business. Right. And I'm sure you've experienced it at this point in time in your career with, the probably hundreds, if not thousands of clients that I know you've served. But there's certain people that we just don't align with as humans. And it's not a bad thing that we are unwilling to do business with them.
Yeah, no. And I was super guilty of that really till this last year. And when I hired my first one-on-one business coach, that's really where things started to open up. Realizing that I was focused on all the shiny stuff that, will get you by, but you're going to always have to go back to those foundational things in order to really get your business to an automated, scalable, something that has actually a business and just not a job. And I know you do a phenomenal job at digging into that with people and really pulling that out and creating those things, as you mentioned. Talk to us a little bit about before you started up Step It Up Academy and what you were doing as a business owner and kind of what that transition, because I've read your book, I've listened to a ton of your content, I know your story, but I'm sure some of our audience doesn't. So walk us through that.
So one of the reasons I'm so passionate about helping others succeed in business is because when I started that first company, right, unlike you, I was too dumb to know that I didn't have the knowledge in my head that I needed, right? Step one. But I didn't have the resources at my fingertips or the availability to gain this information that really would have helped me propel and stride through with that first company. So we'll backtrack here. We'll reverse engineer. So I gave you the end result, which is where we are now, Step It Up Academy. Let's go all the way back to the beginning. And from a time frame perspective, this puts us around 2001, 2002, somewhere around there. I start my first company after leaving a position I was at for about 3 years, right? And I was in the custom car audio industry. I got to a point where I was like, man, I just know more than my boss. To hell with this guy. I'm going to go do my own thing. He wasn't allowing me to do the kind of work that I knew I could do. And that was more in the custom space. And now, hindsight's always 2020. Now I understand why, because it was much harder to make money there because it was very long-term projects versus, hey, we're going to get 3, 4, 5, 6 cars in and out of the shop today and turn a profit on every one of them, rather than we call it in the industry having a flower pot sitting in the shop for 6 months as you're building all this custom cool shit. So complete shiny object syndrome. Oh, this is the cool stuff. This is why I got involved in the industry, because it's sexy. They're showing all this shit on MTV, Pit My Ride and all the MTV shows, right? And it got to the point where I was like, all right, well, this kind of sucks. Struggled really bad. I didn't know a damn thing about business. I was great in the vehicle, but I didn't know how to structure a company. I didn't know that you needed to put money aside for tax purposes, for sales tax, for instance, right? And I wound up somehow muscling my way through 5 years into this company, where I got to the point where I had to throw the towel in. I was $80-something thousand in personal debt. I was extremely overweight at this point in time, because the business took over every aspect of my life. Like nothing else mattered except the company. So whether I ate healthy or ate it all that day, irrelevant. Whether I interacted or showed up for friends and family, irrelevant. And that just poured over into everything, even my personal life. I put myself personally last and the business and the clients first. And I'm here to tell you, if you're a business owner right now, that's one of the biggest mistakes you can make. It wasn't until many years later when I reverse engineered that and started putting myself first in a selfish manner. As bad as that sounds, it really isn't. That's when shit started to get good for me, not just in the business front, but also, mentally, financially. We're talking spiritually. We're talking relationships with people who are close to me, right? I had to basically take care of me first thing in the morning, and that then made everything else better. So, go back to the beginning of the story again. First business crashes and burns after 5 years. It was all my fault. Every bit of it, right? Every single bit of it was my fault. And I went back to work for someone for about 3 years again, which is my norm, by the way. 2 to 3 years I go work for somebody, and then I dive back into entrepreneurship, which is funny how the roads of history just tend to repeat themselves over and over again. So I start this second company here with a business partner. And we start this company, and we specialize in GPS tracking and dash camera installs. It's very similar to the custom car audio space, except, to be quite honest with you, it takes less skill, less technical knowledge to do this work, because it's much simpler work. However, there's much more volume. So the first 5 years of this company, the two of us, two knuckleheads, make every mistake that I've made in the first company. And the only reason it didn't burn to the ground is because there was two of us, and we were two thick-headed, strong, like broad shoulders. I don't say big, I'm talking like a metaphorical sense, like these two strong-willed dudes who just wouldn't give up. And we just kind of powered through everything. And it got to the point where we started making some good money. And I was like, hey, life-altering event happens. My wife is like, dude, I'm pregnant. Okay, awesome. 3 weeks later, I'm like, oh shit, I'm bringing a baby into the world. I got to change what I'm doing here. And I look at this company that I've got now that's about 5 years old, and I'm like, there's a lot of potential in that company, a lot. And I don't have the slightest clue of how to go capitalize on it. So what do I do? And at this point in time, we're making some money. I've got money in the bank. Not a lot, but I got enough to be like, all right, we're pretty comfortable, right? Which is a difficult place to be. Mm-hmm. It's a dangerous place to be, in my opinion. So I went and hired my first business coach. And it's funny, the first business coach led to the second business coach. The second business coach led to the third business coach. And I kept learning information from all of these individuals who I surrounded myself with, and started implementing what I was learning, very similar to you, at a very rapid pace. Because I could see, if I do this today, I may not get the tangible result at the end of the day or end of the week, even end of the month, but 90 or 180 days from now, this is going to turn into something that was well worth the effort, right? And I stuck with it and kept through it, man. And just here's what wound up happening. I go through this whole process, and it's business coaching. Yes, it's one-to-one calls with a coach. But what wound up really happening was I went down this rabbit hole of self-development. Is what I really did. And I started reading like a lunatic. Same thing with you, bro. Started reading like crazy. Started listening to podcasts like crazy. Started intentionally spending time with others who had done bigger, better things than I had done in life. Like, hey, that person's accomplished this. Let me go spend time with them and learn how to do so, and then go implement my version of it in my own life. And that's kind of what I did. It's this rinse and repeat methodology. And I just kept chopping away at it for several years. And by going down this road of self-development, I stumbled upon my true purpose in life. I wasn't looking for it at all. Right. I often joke around as like, I met my wife the night that I was not looking to go and find a wife at all. Quick funny story. I'll give the brief version of it. I had just got out of a bad relationship with a girlfriend that my friends had named Wacky Jackie. Okay, that's your first hint. And I went to the local college bar. I think I was 20 years old at the time. I went to the local college bar and I was like, I'm just going to go and get shit-faced drunk.
Yep. And
I was double fisting Coronas that night. I'll never forget it. Walked into this place and I was with 2 or 3 other guys. And one of the guys I was with knew this girl who is now my wife, introduced, hey, how you doing? What's going on? Like, I thought nothing of it. Went over to the bar and started double fisting Coronas. Later that night, I had a little bit of liquid courage and I basically said, hey, give me your number. And I took her number and I didn't call her for 3 weeks. Okay, 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And somehow 3 weeks later, I was like, let me call this girl. And that wound up turning into the woman who's now the mother of my 3 kids and my wife for a long time. I don't even want to say how many years because I'm going to fuck it up. Right. But I wasn't looking for the wife in that instance. The same thing happened to me when it came to finding the purpose. I wasn't looking for it, but I kept doing the work on me. And all of a sudden this thing just bubbles to the surface and just says like, hey man, here I am. Right. Accept it. This is what we're here to do. Right. And I got super clear. And what happened was, still heavily in the GPS tracking industry. I start a Facebook group there and I start helping other people in that industry. I was super open and transparent. Hey guys, this is exactly how we do things in my company. Like we're doing some shit right now. We're getting some big, massive projects around the country. We have optimized systems and processes. We're getting to a point where we're super efficient. We're onboarding and hiring the right people. Let me show you guys how we're doing it and feel free to go ahead and copy it and duplicate it in your own business. I'm not going to do the work for you, but feel free. And I would go and do Facebook Lives for like an hour long once a week in this group. And I would just open the playbook and show these dudes everything. And I had a lot of people reaching out to me and asking me questions like, hey man, how can I, and just these interactions. And what happened was, as I helped answer these questions and help these people, and you could see them making these little micro increments or improvements in their businesses and lives, it started fulfilling me heavily. And it felt good, right? And coming from the industry I was in, it was a very transactional business. We were doing business with a lot of people who were mandated by the federal government to do business with us. They didn't necessarily want us there, but by law, we had to be there. Yep. Right. So you'd show up to a job site and people were like, yeah, the thing's over there, go figure it out. Like no support whatsoever. To a place, with what I do now, especially is people who are interacting with me, people who are paying clients, they're very willing to pay me the money they pay me. And when we do have conversations, they are very in tune. They're very receptive to what we're discussing because they know that the conversation that we're going to have is going to lead to something greater in their life in the future. So by stumbling upon this purpose, I've gotten very clear, and here's the purpose so everyone knows, like my purpose and the reason I'm here on this planet is to help others succeed in business. That's it. Everything else comes second. Right? So if we lead with the purpose, and if I can get on this call with you today and have, let's call it a 45-minute or an hour-long discussion, right? Maybe you're going to pull a nugget from this. It's going to help you succeed further in your business. Somebody, I guarantee for a fact, in your audience is going to hear what we're saying here today. And it's going to help improve their business some which way, shape, or form. So if I go to sleep tonight and I didn't make $1, I still won the day.
Oh yeah, it's huge. That I love how you kind of started with there's a lot of things that I learned from what you just said, and I've heard your story multiple times, and I know the audience will as well, but a couple things really stick out to me. Obviously the purpose at the end being literally everything, but the aspect that as business owners, you have to be selfish. I think that so many people, and myself included in this bucket, we don't necessarily think about that until something breaks, right? Whether the business breaks, whether relationships, whether something actually breaks in the business. But that has been one of the biggest shifts in my mindset this year, is being selfish literally all the way through. Yeah. Then really identifying a couple of different things in terms of what makes you tick, but you have to go through that journey of self-development, which you talked about, in order to truly get there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a journey that's not for the faint of heart, because things come out. You realize a lot about yourself that you probably don't want to necessarily agree with or admit to, that then leads you to identifying that purpose, which kind of brings everything together. So I really appreciate you sharing that. I think there's a lot of valuable things to pull out from there, but just a couple things that I saw there. Want to kind of shift gears a little bit and get into some of the ingredients that have obviously made you successful thus far. Obviously, great beers are made from great ingredients. What are 3 things that you believe have made you successful thus far in your journey?
I got to start at the beginning, right? And I came from a family of doers, right? So my mom is a doer. And my mom's one of 5, and she had 2 brothers who lived pretty close to where I grew up. And I was with them a lot, especially in my late teenage years. It was kind of like, mom, I was a single mom. My parents were divorced when I was 4. My mom was out busy trying to, make money and put food on the table and make sure that I had a roof over my head, which she did a fantastic job. Right. And I had to spend time with my uncles, because let's just say what it is. You get to the age of 13, 14, 15, and mom ain't trusting me at home alone anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So she's like, no, you're going to work with your uncles. And, I had one uncle who owned an auto body shop, and another uncle who owned a used car dealership and did a little bit of everything, mechanics, auto detailing, the whole 9 yards. And I spent a lot of time with these guys, and I have to basically say thank you to both of them, because they were not kind to me. And I don't mean that in a bad way whatsoever. They gave me what I'll call tough love.
Mm-hmm.
It was no, wake up early. Like, so I would go and stay at my uncle's house, my one uncle's house, and come 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning every day, 7 days a week. I mean, that dude was waking me up saying, get dressed, we're going to work. And we'd hop in the tow truck, and then we'd drive to his shop, and we'd start the day. And basically, if I came back home that night to his house, and if my hands weren't beat up bloody enough, he's like, you didn't work hard enough. And I was like, damn, man, like, really? Like, I'm dying, I'm dragging ass, and you're telling me I didn't work hard enough. And it was that and repetition of that really kind of set the foundation for me as to what hard work really is.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because now that was a big shift for me, that I had to have. Going from a blue collar role, even in my last business, Top Class Installations, where we did the GPS installs, for the first, 3/4 of the lifespan of that business while I was there, I was still in the field doing the work. Right. So going, and that was hard work. Like, you got your ass up early, you're driving all over the damn country, and you're showing up and you're working 12 hours at this job site. Shit, you could be working on garbage trucks one day, and they are disgusting. Right? So you literally like working your fingers to the bone kind of work. And then I've got to make this shift, this pivot to work more on the business to grow and scale it. There's tangibility in blue collar labor. At the end of the day, you have a tangible result. Like, oh, look what I did today. Look what I built. Look what I accomplished. Right. And when you shift over to building more of a business, or working on a business, or working with a client to build their business, there isn't a tangible result at the end of the call. There isn't a tangible result at the end of the week. They've got to go in and do the work, and the tangible result doesn't come until typically that 90-day mark or longer. So it was a real, I call it a mind fuck, especially at first. It's like, man, I just busted my ass behind this computer and spent, 3 days programming software and building out processes. And like, I don't have any extra money in the bank.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I can't see and touch what I just built, but something inside of me is like, no, don't give up. This is the way to do it. And it's that tenacity. And if it wasn't for the hard work that my uncles had put me through growing up, even my mom, like, I don't think I'd be who I am today.
Love it. I think a lot of us, in your story, obviously, paraphrases a lot of that stuff. There's something about our upbringing and the examples that we have in our life in how they have shaped who we are as entrepreneurs today, which is why I love getting into some of these questions, is because there's stuff like, I've obviously listened to your content for a while. I never really knew that aspect of kind of what made you into who you are today. and it's profound. And I think it really sheds light to the impact that people have on lives of those that are at such a young age. Because obviously at the time you weren't probably thinking it would impact you or have that profound effect, so many years later, and really shape you into who you are today. So I absolutely love that. The next thing that I kind of want to touch on real quick, I know obviously we talked about kind of your ups and downs of the journey, but we like to talk about the brewing process as a whole. Obviously, this stuff didn't happen overnight. You had two different companies. You went back for working to someone to doing your own thing again. What are some of the key things as far as like some of the highest of highs and the lowest of lows through this process that you've had so far?
Oof, man. Oh, highest of highs. It's always great winning that big deal as a business owner, being awarded that big contract or closing that big sale. The company I got now, watching the monthly recurring revenue tick up is always a good thing, because it's like, all right, cool, like guaranteed next month I know what's coming in. From the GPS tracking space, one of the biggest wins that we had, we won a contract with the New York City Board of Education where we did 5,000 school buses in a 90-day window over a summer.
Wow.
Right. So we had a $400,000 project and we had 90 days to complete it. And it was like, all right, this is pretty dope. I mean, we worked our asses off to make that thing a reality. That's some of the highs. The lows, I'll give you lows, right? Lows, and this is the responsibility. If you want to be a business owner, cool, but you better put your big boy pants on and buckle up tight, right? Because as high as the highs go, you will have the complete inverse of that. You will have lows of lows. I've got to the point a couple of times in my career where I've had to go into my personal savings account and pull out money to cover payroll for the week. And that is not a cool feeling whatsoever. Right? It's like, shit. If we don't collect money by Friday of this week, I just wiped out my personal savings to pay payroll. And if we don't collect that money by the end of this week, I won't be able to make payroll next week because there's nothing left. Like, you're that close to being wiped out and just knocked off the planet. Like, oh, you no longer exist or matter. See you later. I don't care how much hard work you put into it. And that's a tough pill to swallow. But you got to look at situations like that and be like, all right, well, what's the root cause of this? Why am I going through this? What's the lesson I can learn here? And when I did so, I uncovered a lot of crap in the current business model that we had. And I swore to myself moving forward that we would never do another business in this sense or have to rely on other people for our livelihood. And that's one of the reasons after a couple of years, I got to the point where I was like, I got to get the fuck out of here. I no longer have a passion for this company, right? I've got a partner. He still loves it. Cool, man. Here's my half of the company. I'm out. See you later. And that's when my transition happened, where I wound up leaving New York and made my way down here to Dallas, Texas. I mean, shit, man, even on the low side, personal, like I've been through some health issues with my son. So my second company, Top Class, we were, 8 or 9 years in the business, and my son wound up going through an intestinal blockage in the middle of a blizzard. And I wound up having to walk away from the company for about a 3-week period to take care of family. And fortunately enough, I had built the business where it could operate without me for that period of time. I also had a business partner who could handle a lot of it too, which is also a blessing, right? But if that had happened 3 years earlier, my business would have gone right down into the sinker. And then this past year, my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer, right? So it's like, okay, I still got to show up and operate at a very high level as an entrepreneur. People pay me a lot of money to work with me. And regardless of the bullshit that's going on in my life, I still have to show up and perform for them. Right. So you've got highs, you've got lows. And if you're not willing to openly accept both of those, then I don't think entrepreneurship's for you.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you sharing that. I think, summing that up, there's a lot of things that you just don't know that are going to happen, whether they're directly in the business or, as you mentioned, personal things. Even with family as well, right? And there's more that's required of you as an entrepreneur and as a business owner. And I think a lot of people get into entrepreneurship not necessarily knowing that those things are going to happen, or knowing that you're going to have to take on, the aspect of taking money out of your own savings account and not pay yourself for a while. Those are real things. So I definitely appreciate you diving into that. Really excited to get your thoughts on this question. We talk about fermentation and conditioning. So part of the beer brewing process where we have a beer that's been brewed, we're kind of tasting it to figure out what needs to get better. If you had to pick one lesson to share with an entrepreneur to save them years worth of mistakes, what would that one lesson be?
One lesson. My heart wants to go to core values, but we talked about that a bit before. Here's the lesson we'll give. You got to know what you're worth. You have to know what you are worth per hour. And there's a real old school methodology to this, which I think a lot of our parents and our grandparents come from, which is no, we do everything ourselves when it comes to fixing shit around the house, yard work, whatever. We do it all ourselves because we want it done the way we want it done. And it makes no sense to pay somebody else to go do that for us. What winds up happening is it eats up all of our additional free time, and we wind up becoming a slave to this house we own. Now, granted, I understand that people enjoy doing some of that stuff, and that's cool. That's a hobby. But if you start looking at your personal life as a business as well, start figuring out what you're worth per hour, right? If you know exactly how much you're worth per hour, you got to start thinking about those tasks. Okay, well, if I go clean the windows in my house today, how much time is that going to take me?
Yep.
I'm not saying this to brag. I got a pretty big fucking house and a lot of windows. And if I was to come in here and clean these windows, realistically, it'd take me a good day and a half. Or for $275, I can hire a professional window cleaning company to come in here and they'll get it done in 3 hours.
Yep.
Now, the fact that I know how much I'm worth per hour makes that a very, very simple, non-emotional decision. In 3 hours that they're going to take, because now, mind you, it would have taken me at least a day, probably a day and a half. I could make a lot more money than the $300 that I just paid these guys.
Yeah. No, I think that's such a great lesson. And I know we'll talk about, where they can find you here in a second online, but the time audit exercise that I've done through your book and just those things has really opened up my eyes. And I like how you talk about treating your personal life as a business, because those hours are trade-offs. Those are hours that you could be working on health and fitness, spending with your family, just doing other things that you actually enjoy. And so there is a trade-off. There is a return on investment for hiring people, even on the personal side of things. So I appreciate that. So kind of wrapping everything up here today, we like to talk about the distribution of the beer brewing process, so taking it to market and selling it. I know you have a lot of amazing things going on with Step It Up Academy, podcasts, all that good stuff. So talk about what the future for Tomas and your businesses look like.
It's a great question. So ultimately, I want to help others succeed in business. That's the purpose. And I'm doing that through Step It Up Academy. My vision of it, though, is, and this isn't necessarily a knock on anyone in particular, but I see a lot of people in the coaching mastermind space who have these monstrous organizations and they lose something, in my opinion. I'd rather keep it smaller and keep it much more impactful. And I think the biggest piece of the puzzle missing in that space is the how. Right. A lot of those organizations come in and it's like, hey, this is cool. We're going to give you the very fucking high level, 30,000, 40,000 foot view, the theory, but no one's actually going to show you how to do this exactly. And that's the differentiator. Like I take time with my clients and show them the how, right? That's what my events do as well. And I want to get my mastermind space to a size where I have enough people in there, right? Where it's not too many, where it loses that intimacy, but it also has to be profitable for me as an individual. So it's got to kick off the tokens, and the tokens that it kicks off are going to fund other business investments, businesses that I structure and implement, and they will be vertically integrated to support the coaching and mastermind space. So what other feeders, and this is like, if you look at anyone who's like really uber successful and wealthy, right? Like the Warren Buffetts and whatnot of the world. Like, what are those guys doing? They're buying companies that actually support other companies that they own. So you wind up taking money from one client and passing it through 5, 6, 7, 8 of your entities. And you get a cut of every bit of that passes through your companies. Awesome. Let's go do that. Yeah. So that's the big play there. The overall game plan of how it's going to happen, I don't know yet. Give me 3 months. We'll figure it out.
Love it. No, I'm excited. I think you definitely have the right mindset and setup with that. I think there's no doubt that everything is going to come to fruition. I love the idea of keeping it smaller, keeping the intimacy. I think that's where the biggest growth happens. I think that's where the biggest benefit, the most people are truly impacted in that. So I love to hear that. Excited to continue following your journey and to continue consuming your content. So Tomas, I really appreciate you coming on here today. Where can people find out about you online, social media, all that stuff? We'll have it in the show notes.
Yeah, best place is just head over to stepitupacademy.com, and there's links to my entire life there.
Awesome. Well, any last pieces of information or nuggets for the audience today before we head out, Tomas?
There's never a perfect time, ever. So if you're thinking about doing it, just get off your ass and make it happen.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. I've told multiple people that recently, people that are thinking about going out on their own into entrepreneurship. They look at what I've done and they're like, how did you make the transition? It wasn't the perfect time. It was just the time. So I love that. So Tomas, thank you so much for coming on today, man. I really appreciate it. I know the audience is going to enjoy this one.
Thanks, Adam.
And I want to thank you again to the audience for tuning in to today's podcast. Please be sure to subscribe, download, and share our content. Leaving a 5-star review goes a long way. Thank you again to HAFCO Studios. If you're in St. Louis and looking to start your own podcast or take your current one to the next level, check out what they have going on. We'll see you all next week. And remember, entrepreneurs aren't born, they are brewed.
I'm an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs aren't born, they're brewed. Thank you for listening to Entrepreneur Podcast with your host, Adam McChesney. Let's